Welcome to Books and Things with Tom. It must be Thursday because here we are again. And down here at beautiful SEC TV studio in beautiful downtown Groton. And we're in for a treat tonight because we have Sharen S. Peters. And Sharen is an author, publisher, and she's a member of Kappa. And she sat down and wrote a children's book. And it's a very interesting book. Sharen, welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Nice to be here.
What did you do before you became a writer?
Well, I did a lot of things. I was a dental hygienist for 36 years.
Oh, you're the people that go in there and hurt.
Yeah. And just on a side note, I hated the dentist when I was a little girl, so heaven only knows why I chose that as a career. And I worked in banking, and I worked for Weight Watchers for 7 years.
Well, you don't look like you needed it.
Well, thank you very much. You're very kind.
Yeah, these things just pop into my head. So tell me why you wrote the book.
I actually wrote this book. It's a poem that I wrote several years ago. And I was just sitting in the car as a passenger one day. My husband was driving, and I just jotted down this poem. And not even realizing the poem was about me.
Huh.
I really didn't. The character was actually an elf. And very soon after that, Elf on the Shelf from another author came out.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had to change my character.
Yeah.
And I met an illustrator about 3 years ago, and she suggested the character that you see on the front of the book. And she also suggested that it take place in a toy store, and I'm Just a Little Someone Was born.
That's cool. I've read the book, and it's you have a lot in there to show the kids, and that's one of the secrets of writing children's books now is to be able to interact with a child. And you know, I never had children's book when I was a kid. I don't know, maybe they didn't make them. I don't know, it was that long ago. But I never had kids' books. I remember Golden
Books.
Golden Books.
My first book was given to me at 4 years old. It was a golden book of poetry.
Oh.
And my second book was Grimm's Fairy Tales.
Really? I remember Tom Sawyer. That's about the only thing I remember, but we didn't have a lot of money, so I guess. And my father was one of these readers. He read everything. And he was actually a nuisance because I asked him a question, read it up, check it in a book, go look it up. And I said, Dad, it's easy for you to just tell me.
Yeah, well,
No,
oddly enough, my parents never read to me, and I didn't like reading. And many people say, what do you mean you didn't like reading? You're an author. It's kind of like being a dental hygienist and not liking the dentist. But really and truly, what I didn't realize at the time was that I had a learning disability, a retentive problem. And I think that's why when I wrote this book, I was so proud of myself that I was able to do it, first of all. Secondly, I realized that I was writing about my life. I was writing about myself as a lonely little girl. And what's really weird is that you don't realize you're lonely when you're young like that.
Yeah.
You just think that's the world. This is the way the world is, and this is how I behave, you know, and this is how people treat me, and this is how I treat the world. What I realized when I was growing up in my teenage years was that I was lonely, and in my 20s and my teenage years, I started writing poetry. And I have since looked at my early poems, and there is a thread that goes through all of my poems, and the thread is loneliness.
Wow.
So I've been writing poems for 40 some odd years. And every single poem has a thread of loneliness in it. But what I decided to do with this book was I really didn't want the book to be about loneliness. I wanted it to be about friendship and love and kindness.
And that comes out in it.
It very much comes
Yeah.
out in there. There are many pages that have children helping children.
Yeah.
And there's actually one page where I'm helping my little doggie to get up to the shelf.
Yeah.
So the book just, it evolved over time.
It's a beautiful book, and the graphic artist was tremendous.
Yes, yes, she did a really, really wonderful job. She's very, very talented.
Well, you know, after reading the book and thinking about what you said about being lonely and everything, I was 7 when my brother was born. So I basically grew up as an only child. And because by the time I was 10, 12, he was 3 or 4 years old. And we really had nothing in common. And I can remember going home at night, leaving my friends outside, and being alone. Mm-hmm. And thinking, I wish I had a brother. But sometimes wishes aren't good because they come true. And he was a good kid, but he used to like to irritate me. And you know, when I'm 15, 16 years old, you don't want to bring a little brother all over the place. Mm-hmm. And mother said, I'll take him to the movies with you. No, I got a date. It's okay. So yeah, I can understand where the loneliness comes in. And
Well, let me tell you something about being the youngest child. You were the oldest.
yeah,
I was the youngest. Not only that, I'm of a different gender. I have 2 older brothers. And now that you're telling me this story, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if that's what my brothers thought about me.
yeah,
But talking to you as the youngest child, you probably would be unaware of the effect that that type of behavior as the oldest child has on a younger sibling. Because when I was born, my older brother, 2.5 years older than me, was a very difficult birth for my mother.
yeah.
He broke a record at the hospital for being the heaviest
Really?
baby born. And my
Wow.
mother was a very petite woman. And when she had him back in the late 40s, they didn't do C-sections because they were too dangerous.
Huh.
So when my brother was born, my mother was done. She didn't want any more children. She had her 2 boys.
Yeah.
That was it. My dad, as he told me, and I wasn't there, so I don't know how much of this is true and how much is exaggeration, but he said he always wanted a girl. He just always wanted a little girl. So I'm convinced that I was conceived on my dad's 33rd birthday.
Good for him.
Yeah. And, but my mother she didn't have the tools to bring a girl up. And so I was born into what I call the complete family. My parents, my 2 brothers, and then there's me.
Yeah.
And you don't really think about that until later in life.
Yeah.
The effect that had on me it's astronomical. I mean, ever since I wrote this book, I have been emotionally connected to this story, and I am starting to go back into my childhood. I'm starting to go back into my father's childhood
Wow.
to see if there are any clues as to what makes me me. And I'm starting to uncover some clues. So this book really it's a deeper connection
Yeah.
to myself. And it's been a very emotional journey for me. And again, I really and truly want to bring out the positive influence that book is having on me now that I'm in my senior years.
Yeah, and I don't think we think about our childhood until something comes up and triggers and goes, oh. You know, and like with my brother, I'm sure he was looking for attention all the time from me. as his big brother. And
It's the first sign of loneliness.
yeah, but he was, and I really wasn't capable of it. It's just, I'm a teenage boy, and you don't want to do
Exactly.
teenage stuff, and you can't drag a brother along. 14 years old, he's 7. 16 years old, he's 9. So it's tough to get along. And so we were never really close, and he passed away a couple of years ago. But we were never really close, but you can see some of the stuff in that book what you're saying.
Again, you are remembering your childhood from the perspective of an older child.
Right.
I'm remembering my childhood as from the perspective of a younger child.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something interesting that I realized. When I was 5 years old, my dad built a new house because we lived in a very small apartment. It was only 2 bedrooms. My parents were in 1 bedroom. My 2 brothers and I were in another.
Yeah.
When I turned 5 years old, my father thought, we've really either got to get a bigger apartment or I need to build a house so that we can separate these children. When they built the house, they built a ranch house, which typically is a long hallway. It's all one level.
Yeah.
My dad and mom had their bedroom on, well, I should say my 2 brothers had their bedroom at the end of the hallway. All nice built-in closets, really beautiful room. My parents were adjacent to my 2 brothers on the other side at the end of the hallway. My room was halfway down the hall. So even physically, during the time that I lived in that house, I was alone.
Yeah.
And consequently, as I grew up, I became very fearful of the dark. I became very fearful of being by myself. It had a total effect on me. But again, I emphasize you don't realize that you think this is just the normal life.
Yeah.
I used to be so envious of my friend who had a younger sister. They shared a room.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, "Oh, Mom, can't you bring me a sister? Can't I have a sister so I can share my room with someone?"
Yeah. Yeah, because my brother and I shared my room. I hated it. Because I was a neat dick and he wasn't.
Yeah.
But anyway, the book is all about being a friend.
It
or
really is.
Finding a friend.
Yes. Yes.
And the name of it is
I'm Just a Little Someone.
I'm Just a Little Someone. It's a cute title.
Thank you.
I like that.
Thank you.
The children's books, they have so much, there's so many children's books out today. And when I get them, I actually have I guess like a grandchild. And it's friends of my son's, and I send him the book because he's like 3 years old. And so this will go to him.
That is perfect. It's
And,
the perfect age.
yeah.
There's some wonderful questions at the
Tell
end
me
of the
about some of the
book.
questions.
The questions were evolved, they were created with the immense help of my husband's goddaughter, who on the back of the book is her endorsement. And she and I sat one day. Everybody else, nobody could see the book. I didn't allow anyone to see what my book looked like. And I swore Catherine to secrecy that she would not talk to her parents about it or anything, and she was wonderful.
Oh.
She's a preschool teacher. She sat down with me, and we developed these 18 questions.
Wow.
And I wanted it to be 18 for a very personal reason, because 18 in Hebrew letters means life. And it was very important to me to have 18
Oh, wow.
questions. That's why when people say, well, why 18? And then
Yeah.
the 19th question is just actually, how do you like the story? But the questions were designed for 3 to 6-year-olds. But I have had 7 and 8-year-olds and even a 10-year-old who has read the book and loved it. So some of them are very simple, like, can you name the colors? Can you name the numbers? You know, go to this page, go to that page. But some of the questions are, you really have to think about, even as an adult. And the reason I say that adults is because it's adults reading this book to children.
Yeah.
So there are questions in the back that are, you know, if somebody was sitting next to you and they were really sad, what would you do? You know, would you try to talk to them? You know, they're thinking questions.
Yeah.
And I
That's
wanted
good.
to do that because by the time you get to be 5 and 6 years old and you're in school, you are in touch with your emotions.
Yeah.
You know, usually at 3 years old, we're in touch with our emotions. What many people don't realize is that between the ages of 0 and 3, human beings really and truly, their personalities are developed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they do.
And their core self
Yeah.
is developed. You
And
don't
it- and
know it at 3 years old,
And
but
their
it is.
personalities are patterned after their
Personality,
parents.
it is paramount. Personalities are formed, and you don't really get the full essence of who you are until you start getting older. But you remained who you were at 3 years old. Every one of us has our child inside of us. Whether we want to believe it or not, that child is always there throughout our lives.
Yeah.
That child determines your decision making, determines how well you're going to make friends, how well you're going to relate to the outside, how well you're going to relate to your family. It's all determined between 0 and 3 years old.
And that's why you watch a kid, the kid will mimic everything you do.
Kids are so observant and they listen. If any parent out there thinks that your children don't know what's happening in your household, think again. How parents relate to one another, children absorb that.
Yeah.
And they will bring that into their own lives.
Yep.
And
Totally
you
agree.
see it time and time and time again, generation after generation. They always say, like, if you're a daughter, you're going to marry someone just like your dad, or if you're a son, you're going to marry someone just like your mom. And it's generational. It really is, because children observe and listen. And
That's interesting. And it's true. Because and all of a sudden a kid says a word, you go, where'd you hear that? You said
Exactly.
it. I did.
Exactly.
And you're in trouble. And so you really have to be careful. And I know we never talked to my son babyish or anything. It was always talk to him like a person.
Exactly right.
So he never spoke with baby talk. And I guess it was good. I don't know.
No, I think it's wonderful that if parents are able to treat their younger children, one-on-one. I mean, spending time, it's not the quantity of time that you spend with your children, it's the quality of the time that you're spending with them.
Yeah, and it's quality for both.
It really
Father
is.
and son, or mother, son, or excuse me, choking here. Now you've got some book signings coming up.
I do.
Blue Horse Children's Store in Mystic on Saturday.
Yeah, May 6th at 11 o'clock. It's part of Mystic Stroll Days.
Mystic Stroll Days.
Yes. And then on Wednesday, May 24th, at the Mansfield Public Library in Mansfield, Connecticut, I'll be doing a presentation, and the presentation is actually called Childhood Loneliness,
Really?
the Silent Epidemic.
Oh,
And it's going to be a very interactive discussion. I will be doing that with a friend of mine, Dan Blanchard, who has also written a book called The Storm. And it's The Storm, How Young Men Become Good Men. And Dan will be taking the presentation further into teenage years. I will be talking about my childhood and about younger children. And then Dan will take it further, how loneliness manifests itself in teenagers.
yeah, Dan is educational on that.
Yeah, yes. So I'm excited about that. And then on Sunday, June 25th, I will be at Savoy Books in Westerly, Rhode Island
Yeah.
at 1 o'clock, and I will be signing books. And I will also be doing a raffle. So a free book will be given to one lucky person. And also there will be a surprise that I'm not going to say what it is.
You better come to see it.
Yeah, you have to come to see what the surprise is, yes.
And you're also at Janet Carlson Calvert Library?
Yes, that the date still has to be determined. I
Okay.
believe it's August 3rd. But I will be doing a storybook hour
Okay.
at the library.
So you're busy.
I am. It's
I've always envied children's authors. They sell books like crazy.
well, I don't know about the selling, but I hope to sell books like crazy. My book is available on Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble. People can also purchase my book through my website, www.lifelongfriendspublishers.com. They can email me at sspeters@lifelongfriendspublishers.com. It's available, and it's
Savoy
also
Books.
Savoy Books in Westerly, Bank Square Books in Mystic. It's available as an ebook. It's available on Kindle. It's available
Everywhere.
everywhere, and it's a very exciting time of my life.
And if you can't
Right now.
remember all that, email me and I'll tell you how to get there.
Exactly, or just go right to my website, www.lifelongfriendspublishers.com.
Yeah.
I'm also on Facebook, and my Facebook page is called Friends for Life, and that's the name of my series. There will be forthcoming books. Some of it will depend on the success of this book,
Yeah.
but I do have books written to continue along in the series, but they're
That's
all
good.
about friendship and kindness and generosity and just learning about yourself and overcoming loneliness. And the best time to do that, 0 to 3 years old, is like take care of your children and love them and care for them and pump them up to believe in themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. The kids need help. And to let them just straggle on by themselves is tough.
Well, I was saying to you that your younger brother, who was, always wanted attention, is one of the first signs of loneliness,
Yeah.
is when you are craving love. Because I also, I wanted attention too.
Sure.
And I was basically known as an instigator or a troublemaker because I always wanted center stage. Well, yeah, of course I wanted center stage because I wanted people to acknowledge me, that
Yeah.
I was a someone, that I was a little someone.
And that's, it's sad that you don't know these things when you're growing up. Like with my brother, I'm sure I missed some times with him, but when he grew to the point where I could do things with him, he had other things to do.
You see?
Yeah, so, when he was
There's a
16...
song about that, a Harry Chapin song.
That's right.
Cats in the Cradle.
I don't like that song.
I know, but you know what? There's some truth to it. There is.
I know. It reminds me of my son, and it just
Yeah, I know.
gets me depressed.
Yeah, it is a I don't particularly like the
Yeah.
song either, just to
It's
share that
it's
with
a good
you.
song, but
It's
just
a very good song, but I don't like it either because it's a very sad song.
it is.
And
It is. And
yeah.
God, there's so many bad songs out there.
I
It just
know.
drive you
And
nuts.
movies.
Yeah. I just God, I watched a movie the other night, Chicago Fire,
Oh,
and the girlfriend died of cancer, and I sat there and cried with them. But certain things will just strike you and get you nutsy. But anyway, it's a good book, and there's a lot of great pictures in here. And if you see somebody that looks like this girl on the cover, it's her.
that's me. It
You
is.
should have won the outfit. But she-
You know, it's funny that you say that because I said to Tom, I said, why don't we dress up as our characters?
Yeah, you'd have been cool.
Maybe we'll do this again sometime,
Yeah.
and I'll come in as my character.
Chin Littlefield came on dressed as his Confederate slave.
I had thoughts about doing that. I really did, but I thought, this is professional, and I
Yeah.
really should look professional. But maybe I'll get
Well-
lucky, and I'll come on again, and I'll
We try to have fun, and that's it's not all facts, and because life's too short.
It is. I am learning that, especially this past week. It's been
Really.
a very difficult. I just lost someone
that's
that
right.
was,
Sorry to hear that.
yeah. Thank you.
And you're a member of Kappa, the Southeast chapter.
Love it.
And the we're
Love having you as the president.
Oh, thank you. And we're almost ready to go outdoors.
I'm ready.
We have, for those of you who don't know, Connecticut Authors and Publishers, and we go outdoors during the summertime. We got June, July, and August where we go to a member's house, usually near the water, and have a potluck meeting. I love those. And let's see, I got a couple of notes here to read. For previously aired shows, tune in to the SEC-TV.org and click on the YouTube button and search the site for not only books and things with Tom, but all the other shows that we produce at the station. And I recently completed an 8-week heroin addiction. I'm still talking about it because it's so important that we try to help the people with heroin addiction. And it seems like even the government now is stepping up their things on it. But to see those, go to, again, SECTV.org, and all 8 shows are on there. And each one was a different group of people that are trying to help with that heroin and get people off it. And it's just a shame there's so many people passing away with it. You can also check my Facebook page, Books and Things with Tom, for updates. And special thanks to Frank and Frank at SEC-TV. Everybody's Frank here, except me, for helping me host this show. And by the way, we operate on donations, so if you'd like to, if you like our shows and would like to can afford a couple of bucks, they'd appreciate it. I don't get any, so it doesn't make any difference, but we'd like to keep the show on the air. Just like that one on TV that's advertised all the time. Send your money now.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to start a new session this week. We got birthdays. My cousin Mary is today. My late brother is on the 17th. My birthday is on the 6th. And my old high school buddy is on the 8th. So if you have a birthday announcement, please let me know, and I'll be happy to announce it on their show. Thank you for watching. Email me at santostom@comcast.net. You should be reading, even if it's a children's book, you should be reading. Cuddle up with a good book on these warm nights. And I'll see you next time. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you, Tom. It's been a pleasure.